My name is Sir Rowan. I am a knight sworn to protect the kingdom. I live to serve my king and my people. It is a life of honor and duty. But sometimes it is also lonely. One day the king called for me. His face was serious. His voice was heavy. He said, "Rowan, I have a task for you, a great one." I knelt before him and bowed my head. "Anything for you, my king," I said. He told me about the rose of Eldermoor. It is no ordinary rose. It blooms only once every 100 years. It is said to hold great power. Some say it can heal any wound. Others say it can grant a wish. The king said the rose was hidden in the far north. It was my job to find it and bring it back. "Be careful, Rowan," the king said. "The road will be dangerous. Many have tried to find the rose. None have returned." I nodded. I felt fear in my chest, but I also felt pride. "I will not fail you," I said. The next morning I left the castle. I wore my armor and carried my sword. My horse, Bramble, walked beside me. He was a strong horse with a coat as black as night. The road was long, the air was cold. I rode through villages where people waved and cheered. They wished me luck. I smiled and waved back, but inside I was nervous. What dangers would I face? Would I return home? The forest grew thicker as I traveled north. The trees were tall and dark. Their branches looked like claws. The wind whispered through the leaves. It sounded like voices, soft and strange. I held the reins tightly. Bramble snorted as if he felt it too. One evening, I stopped to rest by a stream. The water was clear and cold. I drank and let Bramble drink too. The sun was setting. The sky turned orange and pink. It was peaceful for a moment. Suddenly I heard a noise. A branch snapped. My hand went to my sword. I stood up and looked around. "Who's there?" I called. My voice was strong, but inside my heart raced. A woman stepped out from the trees. She wore a long, dark cloak. Her hair was golden and her eyes were green. She looked at me and smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "You're far from home, knight," she said. I kept my hand on my sword. "Who are you?" I asked. "What do you want?" "My name is Evelyn," she said, "and I think you need my help." I kept my eyes on the woman. "Evelyn," she said her name was. Her green eyes seemed to see right through me. I didn't know if I could trust her. "You think I need your help?" I asked, my voice steady. "Why is that?" She stepped closer, her cloak brushing against the ground. "You're searching for the Rose of Eldermoor, aren't you?" I froze, my chest tightened. "How do you know that?" She smiled again, tilting her head. "Everyone has heard the stories, but you are the only one brave or foolish enough to seek it now." I frowned. "The road is dangerous. Why would you help me?" Her smile faded. She looked away for a moment, as if hiding something. Then she said softly, "Because I know the way. I've been there before." I hesitated. Could I believe her? Her words felt true, but her eyes held secrets. Finally, "If you lie to me, I will not forgive you," I said. She nodded. "Fair enough, Sir Knight." The next morning, Evelyn and I began our journey together. She walked ahead, her steps light and quick. I rode behind her on Bramble, watching her closely. "The forest is alive," she said as we entered a grove of ancient trees. "It listens to us. It watches us." Her words sent a chill through me. The trees were tall and twisted. Their branches formed strange shapes, like arms reaching for the sky. "Alive?" I asked. "What do you mean?" She stopped and turned to me. "Have you heard the stories of Eldermoor? This land is full of magic. Some of it is good, and some is not." I tightened my grip on the reins. "And what kind of magic is in this forest?" She looked around, her face calm but serious. "The kind that tests you. Be careful, Rowan. It will play tricks on your mind." By midday we reached a wide river. The water was dark and fast. Mist rose from the surface, twisting and curling like smoke. Evelyn stopped at the edge. "This is the River of Echoes," she said. "We must cross it, but it will not be easy." Why not? I asked, dismounting from Bramble. She pointed to the water. It is cursed. It will try to pull you in. If you listen to the whispers, you will lose your way. I stepped closer and listened. At first I heard nothing but the rush of water, then faint voices. They were soft, like whispers in the wind. Rowan, they said, come closer. I shook my head and stepped back. How do we cross? Evelyn pulled a small pouch from her cloak. She opened it and sprinkled silver dust onto the water. The whispers grew louder for a moment, then quieted. Follow me, she said. She stepped onto the stones that rose above the water. I followed, my heart pounding. Halfway across, the whispers returned. They called my name. They sounded like my father, my mother, people I had lost. Rowan, stay here with us. I stopped. My feet felt heavy. I looked into the water. For a moment I thought I saw my father's face. Rowan, Evelyn's voice broke through. She grabbed my arm and pulled me forward. Don't look. I blinked and looked away from the water. My father's face was gone. We made it to the other side. My legs felt weak, but I stood tall. Thank you, I said. Evelyn nodded, her green eyes softer now. The forest is testing you, she said, but you are strong. By evening, we reached a hill. At the top we saw it, the castle. It was old and crumbling, covered in vines. Mist surrounded it, swirling like a living thing. That is where the rose blooms, Evelyn said. Inside the castle, I asked. She nodded. But be careful, it is guarded. Guarded by what? She looked at me, her eyes dark. Shadows. They will try to stop you, but you must not give up. I felt a shiver run through me. The castle looked cold and silent, but something about it felt alive. We will rest here for the night, Evelyn said. We will enter the castle at dawn. I agreed, though sleep would not come easy. As I lay under the stars, I thought of the rose. What power did it hold, and why did Evelyn seem so sure about it? I would find out. Soon. At dawn, we stood before the castle gates. They were massive, made of iron and covered in strange symbols. They creaked loudly as Evelyn pushed them open. The sound echoed through the mist. Inside, the air was cold and damp. The walls were covered in moss and the floor was cracked stone. The castle smelled of earth and age. It felt like it had been waiting for us, watching us. Evelyn moved carefully, her steps light. I followed, my sword in hand. Where is the rose? I whispered. In the heart of the castle, she said. But we must be quick. The shadows will wake soon. I frowned. What are these shadows you speak of? They are not men, she said. They are not alive, but they can still hurt you. As we moved deeper into the castle, the air grew colder. The halls were dark, lit only by faint light from broken windows. Then I heard it, a soft sound like footsteps. But it was not just one set of steps, it was many. Evelyn, I said, gripping my sword tightly. I know, she said, her voice steady. Stay close to me. The shadows appeared slowly. At first, they were just shapes in the dark corners of the hall. Then they moved, sliding across the walls and floors. They had no faces, no eyes, but I could feel them watching us. One of them lunged at me. I swung my sword, but it passed through like smoke. Still, I felt a sharp pain in my arm. They cannot be killed, Evelyn said, but they can be slowed. She pulled a small vial from her cloak and threw it at the shadow. The glass shattered, and the shadow hissed before fading into the wall. Hurry, she said, grabbing my hand. We must keep moving. We ran through the halls, the shadows chasing us. My heart pounded, and my breath came in short gasps. The shadows whispered as they followed, their voices cold and hollow. Give up, Knight, they said. You cannot win. Finally, we reached a large door at the end of the hall. It was carved with images of roses and stars. Evelyn pushed it open, and we stepped inside. The room was circular, with a high ceiling that seemed to reach the sky. In the center of the room was a single rose. It glowed softly, its petals silver like moonlight. "There it is," Evelyn said, her voice barely above a whisper. I stepped toward the rose, but Evelyn grabbed my arm. "Wait," she said. "There's something you must know." "What is it?" I asked, my voice tense. Evelyn looked at the rose, her eyes sad. "The rose is not just a flower," she said. "It is alive, and it must choose to go with you." I frowned. "Choose?" She nodded. "You cannot take it by force. You must offer something in return." "What kind of offering?" I asked. She hesitated, then she said, "Your heart, your courage, something true and pure." I looked at her, confused. "How do you know this?" Evelyn looked away. "Because I was once like the shadows. I was trapped in this castle, until the rose saved me. Now I guard it." My chest tightened. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I needed to see if you were worthy," she said. "And now I know. You are brave, Rowan. You have a good heart." Her words softened my anger, but I still felt the weight of her secret. I stepped toward the rose. The shadows gathered at the edges of the room, watching but not attacking. They seemed to be waiting. As I reached out, a voice echoed in my mind. It was not Evelyn's. It was soft and ancient, like the wind in the trees. "What do you seek, knight?" the voice asked. I took a deep breath. "I seek the rose of Eldermoor," I said. "My king sent me to find it. My people need its power." "What will you give in return?" the voice asked. I thought for a moment, then I said, "I will give my loyalty, my life if needed. Not for myself, but for my kingdom, for the people who trust me." The room fell silent. Then the rose glowed brighter. It seemed to lift from the ground, floating toward me. "You are worthy," the voice said. The rose landed in my hands. It was warm, almost alive. Evelyn smiled, her eyes shining with relief. "You did it," she said. But before I could respond, the shadows began to fade. The room grew brighter. The cold air disappeared. It was as if the castle itself was coming back to life. "You broke the curse," Evelyn said softly. "The rose has chosen you." "What about you?" I asked. She looked at me with a sad smile. "I was part of the curse. Now that it's broken, I can finally be free." Her words hit me like a blow. "You're leaving?" She nodded. "But I will never forget you, Rowan. You are brave and you have a kind heart. Thank you." I left the castle with the rose in my hands and Bramble at my side. The road back felt shorter, lighter. When I reached the castle, the king was overjoyed. The people cheered. But my heart felt heavy. I thought of Evelyn, her green eyes, her courage, her sacrifice. The rose was a gift for the kingdom, but Evelyn's memory was a gift for me. And so I kept her in my heart, a reminder of the journey, of the trust we built, and the love that changed me forever.